Hello, and welcome to another episode of What's on the Pile. I'm Nathan Besner, and joining me is Shane Lee,
Hey, what's up?
Matt Wagner,
It's Wagner.
Jane Belcastro,
Hello.
and Jenner.
Jenner here.
Tonight, we go back to the theater, vaudeville to be specific, with the 1962 adaptation of the Broadway smash Gypsy, as in Gypsy Rose Lee, the most famous burlesque dancer of all time. Based initially on her memoirs, which were then made into a book, made into a Broadway musical, and that was adapted to this film. Starring Rosalind Russell and the great Natalie Wood, Gypsy was highly lauded for the time. It was nominated for 3 Academy Awards and a handful of Golden Globes. But first, we're going to do question time. And our question kind of relates to last episode's question, which was most underrated films of all time. Well, we've decided to do most overrated films in our opinions. So yeah, go.
So the Sound of Music.
I like the sound of music.
I do too.
I do too.
Okay, good for you. No, that particular piece of drippy bullshit is the one really jangling thing that I can point to in the entirety of Robert Wise's otherwise mostly, professional to stellar directorial career. Granted, I've never seen Rooftops, which was his last movie and the only one that he did after Star Trek: The Motion Picture, Star Trek: The Motion Picture, I actually tend to favor as somewhat underrated, particularly since they restored the director's edition on the thing. Still need to see the new 4K version of that, but leaving that aside from it. Yeah, no, I fucking hate The Sound of Music. Fuck that movie.
I'm
that's-
actually not a fan either. I don't like that movie. I don't actually have a reason. There's just something about its attitude that bothers me.
I mean, there is the scene during. Oh, God, what is Julie Andrews' character's name again?
Who the fuck cares?
No, but there's at her wedding, they're singing like,
Maria.
how do you deal with a problem like Maria or something?
Maria.
At her wedding, they're singing that song, which I thought was hilarious.
Well, it
But-
is nuns. I mean,
I mean, it's one of those things. I can't actually fault the acting a bit. The fundamental error is entirely going to be in the screenplay. I don't particularly like the songs either. I'll
What?
freely allow that a lot of them are freaking catchy, but also some of them are freaking creepy. What is it? I Am How Old, Going on How Old, both of which are illegal. Of course, we'll circle back on that in the second half, but
yeah.
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 yeah. No, like I say, that's a particular personal vendetta. Again, no hate if you actually happen to enjoy that. I don't know what's wrong with you, but Lord knows there's plenty of stuff that's wrong with me that nobody can account for either.
True enough.
I'll save my other ones until we circle back to me. Somebody else go.
I've got a real quick one. I want to preface this by saying I like this movie a lot, okay? Because I'm going to get tarred and feathered for this, especially by this group. But I think Mad Max Fury Road is a very overrated movie. It's
Oh.
a good movie. I liked it. But it's like people are saying like the best movie of the decade, got nominated for Best Picture. People are saying it's like reviving the cinema as art. I mean, I've heard all these things said about it. And I was just like, that was a fun movie.
Do you think maybe it's because it managed to hit the nostalgia just right? That a lot of the love is coming from the love of the concept of what came before, rather than it as its own unique encapsulated thing?
It could be.
I really loved that movie. I
really
thought
liked
it. I
Mhm.
thought it was really fantastic. I don't know about best movie of the decade, but I mean, for the last decade, my vote for best movie is Avengers: Infinity War. So I realize that I'm probably a bit of an outlier as far as that goes. In any case,
No, that's a good one. I would rather
No,
watch that than Mad Max. I mean,
I
again,
think there's a
liked
lot
it.
of people in the theater who would agree with you on that one, Jenner.
I would say
mean,
I would say the best theater experience of the decade was Endgame. But
Endgame was the
Infinity
best
War,
theater
yeah,
experience.
but Infinity War is the better movie by far.
Yeah, no, Infinity War is one of the very few things that I would actually class as a perfect movie. I saw that dozens of times when they were running it on a loop or like as a demo in Best Buy, and it never got old. It never got tiring. It never set a foot wrong. no, movie was one of those very, very rare perfect films. Endgame was a fantastic cinema experience, though. But yeah, no, Fury Road I hold as an incredibly strong piece of art. It's certainly way up there for my vote for the best movies of the last decade, but I can see where you're coming from. I don't know as that I entirely agree with you. It was certainly the best movie of that year. Granted that the only other one that got nominated for an Oscar that I would even place would probably be The Martian, which actually gets more enjoyable every time I watch it.
I love that movie too.
Yeah, I mean it's only it's only grown in stature I think since it came out, and I rewatched it again last year thinking maybe I missed something. I thought the exact same thing after I watched it. I thought that was good. I really liked it. Don't really get what the big deal is, but
I mean, it's still interesting where an action franchise somehow ends up making the big Oscar pitch in its fourth installment. That's sort of an interesting historical experience in its own right.
I'll be honest, I wasn't too thrilled with Tom Hardy's performance in that movie. I just didn't he didn't feel like Max to me. And
what performance? I mean, he
yeah,
just-
exactly.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree
that's
with
what I mean.
that.
Well, Hardy can overact like hell when he wants to, but he can also underact like hell when he wants to. Sometimes both in the same picture. If you've seen Bronson.
Mm.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
I love Bronson.
I need to see that.
It's a film that kind of doesn't end up going much of anywhere, but it's a magnificent performance on his
Yeah.
part. For me, Overrated is really difficult for me because I genuinely try to extract all the good things out of films. So
No, me too. I, mean,
How
I think
you-
most of us are pretty good in that regard.
yeah, it's just I don't end up hating a lot of films. I mean, when I was trying to come up with, I was going through what are the most overrated movies on lists on the web, and I'm like, nope, like that, like that, like that, like that. I mean, there's little things I could pick on, like Saving Private Ryan. I don't like solely because I think the return to the current day in the graveyard at the very end was so maudlin of a point to
I
end
agree
on.
with that.
I'm actually going to agree with you on that
Which,
one.
but I don't think that spoils the whole movie.
I still think
Um,
Saving Private Ryan is a genuinely nasty movie in a way that it is completely uncomfortable with embracing. But of course,
Mhm.
this is part of that longer Spielberg rant that I've
Well,
been
speaking
iterating
of,
from time to time in its own right.
speaking of, I didn't particularly like Hugo, which is held up by a lot of people as an excellent experience for much the same reason, because there's a point about 3/4 to the end where they just have to get the two kids to put a button on the whole film, and that little conversation they have. I can't even remember the substance of it, but I remember it just being eye-rollingly bad. And I could pick on There's Something About Mary, but that's largely because of a very particular set of circumstances under which I saw it, which, if we're running low on time, I'll go into. But so the only one I can really come up with is one I think everyone here is probably going to agree with, which is Avatar.
Oh
Which
yeah.
No,
is
actually, I quite
I-
enjoyed
okay.
it a lot.
I actually
I-
really like Avatar.
I fucking hate Avatar. It is the story of Pocahontas as conducted in a Spencer Gifts.
Nice. Well
Okay, that-
done, actually.
like I say, even liking the movie, I love that description.
Okay, that's a
And
beautiful
Granted,
critique.
I'm still one of the ones that would probably tend to look at that as featured, not bug.
Well, I think it was one of the group here who said that they saw it with someone in the theater, and when they got to the point that we discover the MacGuffin is named Unobtainium, their
God.
immediate response was to
Yeah.
stand up and shout, "That's a thing?"
That sounds like Nate.
Yeah.
It wasn't me.
Was that you?
I did shout something, but it wasn't
Okay.
that. It was just fuck you.
See, I saw Avatar. I saw Avatar in the theater.
Unobtainium was actually
That
a
was pretty
joke that
quiet.
they had. Unobtainium was a joke that they had ganked from The Core, if you remember that particular
Mhm.
underrated disaster movie. But is it one of those things that's kind of slipped into the common parlance? Like I've got VCRs, for example, where I can refer to replacement parts as being unobtainium, and the people who actually follow that sort of thing would know what I'm talking about. I mean, that's it. That was sort of, I took that as a gag in the picture itself.
I took that as a revelatory gag that showed that they were just winging it. And this is this is hitting a part in the script where it just says fill in plot device here, and Avatar was so predictable on every point, and I did not find it endearing in any respect. There are only 5 movies that took me 3 tries to get all the way through, and Avatar is one of them. 2 of the others were The Room and Troll 2.
What about this week's movie? We'll get to that.
Oh,
So
no.
that'll take 3 tries to get through.
I saw Avatar in the theater, and if not for the fact that Cameron was making like 10 more sequels, I would have never thought about that movie ever again. It just was completely forgettable, and somehow it made so much money. It was crazy that it doesn't make that kind of money without people going back over and over, which blows my mind.
To see the 3D effects. To see all the 3D
guess.
stuff.
I was really in it for the 3D. And
Yeah, no,
I
I mean,
just thought it was so colorful, and I just love that whole idea of just,
I mean, I'm not
scrapping society and just moving into
I'm
the
not going to criticize a
trees.
Disney ride for lack of plot. I'm going to criticize a movie for lack of plot. But if you're going to it for the ride, I totally understand that. Yeah, because the effects were well done and well rendered. It's just the entire world looked like somebody rendered a 1980s Trapper Keeper.
Hey, now I'm that audience. I am the
So am
target
I.
audience.
I was gonna say I'm still gonna have to go with feature, not bugbear. Not necessarily a majority opinion at this point, but no, I mean the common take on Avatar at this point is Sanskrit. Really? The
I
font?
don't remember that.
No, the font.
Okay.
But I genuinely liked it. I still agree with I saw it with my friend Llewellyn, and what he said to me immediately after that movie ended was, "If I had been a 14-year-old boy, that would have been the best goddamn movie I ever saw."
I mean,
And I kind of have to enjoy it on that level. I also appreciate the sheer fuerte of Stephen Lang's villain in the movie, noting with some certain smug amusement that when the history books get written by humans, because humans are the ones who write history books, they would note that he would have gone down in history as one of the greatest military badasses of all time, because he would have won that fight if the entire planet had not literally attacked him and he had breathed an unbreathable alien atmosphere for 5 minutes until someone impaled him with a telephone pole. That was one tough motherfucker.
I just remember the tail sex.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Cameron.
I'll allow much worse in the screenplay than in the movie itself. But
So Cameron makes better sequels than just about anybody. So who knows? Maybe part 2 will be good. I don't know.
Yeah, but Terminator was. I don't think Avatar is as memorable as his other projects.
Yeah, it's not. It doesn't seem like it's going to be a leap forward like Terminator 2 was or Aliens was.
Avatar, I feel, is memorable largely for the technological leap it was in visual effects. It is not memorable for the story.
It's been commonly documented that even if the movie had completely flopped, the patents alone for the technology that Cameron created for that movie would have been enough for anybody to, live more than comfortably for 1,000 years. No, I still like 3D. I still like that movie. I'll agree, it's not great, but I think it's pretty good.
Well,
Jane, what do you have?
Oh, good God. See, I was trying to slide under the radar, being real quiet, because I just don't have anything.
I can go if you still want to think about it.
Well, no, it's not going to help. Honestly, I was thinking a lot of the 80s movies that a lot of my friends really loved, I was kind of like, Fast Times at Ridgemont High and things like that. But honestly, usually things work on me pretty well. I mean, I'll get meh about some of the things. I don't know. I mean, if it's a blockbuster, it was probably targeted toward me. You know what I'm saying? So if it's overrated, it probably wasn't to me. I don't know.
You watch movies with Jenner, so you also see the critically lauded art films and weird foreign stuff. Is there any of those that are supposed to
Honestly,
be great films that you didn't like?
I honestly, I can't even think of one right now, and I have
Okay.
been thinking,
Hmm.
but no. And see, have you noticed everything that you guys have mentioned? I've been like, I like that one.
Possibly even more so than myself, you are in fact the perfect audience.
Well, I'm just not incredibly critical, or the things that I like are more of a mainstream vibe. It's more of a
Yeah, no, I do remember the conversation we had a couple of days ago when we saw X, the new Ty West film. It's like that was excellent. I hated it.
yeah.
And in the meantime, I was in that one of those rare instances where I just have that big dumb grin plastered to my face all the way through the closing
Yeah,
credits.
but you like splatter movies.
Yeah, no, I like I.
Well, I guess I could say that a lot of times things that, like splatter movies that most people like, I'm just not that into. I mean, we could,
That's more of a generic
but
taste.
that it
than,
is. It's
yeah,
not really
exactly.
that. It's more like I'm just not into it. It's not like, I'm like, that's overrated. It's more like, well, I'm sure it works for somebody, but it doesn't work for me.
At the same time, I'll note that you never dozed off watching X.
Oh no, it was a great movie. I mean, if they just stuck to the porn plot, I would have been fine. But
I don't even know what that movie's about.
you
Not
would
porn,
probably
apparently.
really
You don't
like it.
have to-
Just don't watch it with the kids. That's all.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
watch it, so just don't tell me anything. I'm going in cold,
Okay.
cold.
Ain't saying nothing.
Cool.
Go ahead.
But yeah, it's frickin' fantastic.
It is, and the acting, and it's beautiful, just like stunning. And the lighting, oh my god, it was really good. But I don't ever want to see it again.
Cool.
Hey,
All right, I'll do mine now. Really, it's a bunch of movies.
Oh.
John Hughes movies in general tend to just piss me the fuck off. I hate Pretty in Pink. I hate
Oh.
16 Candles.
Oh.
I do. I hate them. I think they're weird, racist, sexist little movies that have always bothered me.
What about
Okay,
the Breakfast
I-
Club?
I'm gonna agree with that. But at the time when I was watching them, just living in my little my little Wonder Bread world. I mean, they were great at the time. Now I can go back and go, ooh, ooh.
I'm
But-
going to have to caveat. I still really love Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Oh
I
my
do.
God.
I do like that.
Ah.
Hughes's movies that were pitched for more of an adult audience, I think, tend to actually hold up relatively well. I actually really like She's Having a Baby, also.
What about the Breakfast Club?
But his teen movies.
I don't like the Breakfast
You don't like
Club.
the
I need to see
Really?
see Breakfast Club again, but the other ones that you mentioned, yeah, no, I never actually gave a flying syrupy shit about those in the first place. So I'm actually very much there with you on this one.
Yeah.
I missed most of them, but I did like Breakfast Club rather a lot.
I mean, I saw them when I was a kid growing up in Ohio, and even though they were for adults, I mean, they kind of work. I haven't seen them in like 30 years, so
Yeah.
other than Breakfast Club, which I saw like 2 years ago. Again.
It's one of those things which the nostalgia merchants in a lot of sort of populist filmmaking keep pointing to as something that anybody actually gives a crap about, but I've yet to find anybody who actually gives a crap about them.
My wife.
Well,
yeah,
okay.
I like. There's just something about. I mean, it felt very real to me. These movies about young women. It felt like my experience. So I was more than fine with them.
I also had an unusual upbringing, so that may
That's true.
color my perception quite a bit.
I think to me they were portraits of what I thought it was going to be like when I got older, and so for that it was almost like a wistful kind of longing. Not that I would want to be, I don't know, Ducky or whatever, but it was like a different world to me. So for me it was almost like that kind of like movie magic that kind of worked on me.
Yeah, I feel that too. That whole
Yeah.
like, trying to be not popular, at least liked, and and find love and all that. It really, it struck me. I got it. It was made for me.
I also hate Home Alone.
Oh,
I mean, I saw it when
Yeah.
I was like 10. It was fun.
Yeah.
I've recently showed it for my daughter, and she loved the hell out of it.
Oh yeah, my kids
Once
love it too.
We had to do a lot of explaining ahead of time that people aren't actually getting hurt
Yeah.
because while she watches Warner Brother cartoons, despite what many people will tell you, she is perfectly able to tell the difference between cartoons and reality. So we had to make sure that it was also very clear to her that this is basically a cartoon you're watching as far as Home Alone goes.
I mean,
Yeah,
part
live
2 is
action.
even worse.
Yeah,
so-
I think it's best appreciated at that level. At the same time, I
Mhm.
mean, I'm moderately fond of it, but have no interest in revisiting it or any of its sequels or its recent remake.
I've
Not even
seen
with Tim
all of
Curry in
them.
it.
I have too, and I'll
Well,
also
yeah, I mean-
say
I
that
mean,
I'm
make-
actually really into Uncle Buck. So
Well,
Macaulay
okay, I actually
Culkin's
really
kind of
liked.
going.
I actually really liked
Uncle
Uncle
Buck.
Buck.
I liked
Loved Uncle Buck,
too.
and
Purely
so
for
going
John
from
Candy,
that
because I
to
don't think that
this
movie actually
was just
had a
fine.
screenplay. Um,
Just John Candy showing up with
So-
a drill.
yeah.
So Besner, have you seen all of them just because of your experience, or did you make a project of it at one point? to
Oh,
catch
no.
all the ones you missed.
No, this was because of the kids. They
Oh.
love this. Well, Declan in particular loves the series, and I don't know. Out of a morbid curiosity, I've sat through each and every one of them. I could have left. I watched these by choice.
This was a thing
Yeah.
that you did to yourself.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
Yes.
having
well-
done it more than once, you continued to do it several times more.
Well, the
Yeah, as-
last one is the worst of all. The most recent one. That's like
the one with Ellie Kemper and
yeah,
Pete
exactly.
Holmes. I haven't seen it.
Well,
What's the
they're
name of it?
it's called Home Alone again. I think.
Oh, okay.
I'm not
I'm
sure.
not sure
something
I've
like
seen
that.
that.
It's
No, we
Oh, yeah.
somehow missed that when it
Okay,
was
so-
released, like, what, 6 months ago, something like that?
Oh, okay.
one.
Oh, okay.
It is disgusting because you have this like super privileged little rich boy who never changes from being an absolute shitball asshole. He's just a
Wow.
little rich piece of shit. And these two people are trying to get something back from him that he stole
Oh.
because
That's
they're
Wow.
going to lose their
That.
house.
So it's capitalist propaganda, is what you, or
Wow.
oligarchical propaganda.
Yes,
Oh,
Yeah.
yuck.
it's disgusting. It is an
Wow.
awful film. I think most people agreed with me on that one, though.
Did it have like a fun like housebreak scene though? I mean, that's what it's all about, right? Like the traps and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's not.
That and the
It's not fun when you like the characters and want them to succeed. It's not fun with Ellie Kemper. She's like
Wow.
watching her get burned with fire. You're like, this is assault. This is really
it's
gross.
Home Alone and the Saw series. A lot of similar characters.
Yeah.
I mean, there have
That's
been a lot of
exactly
here
how
for
I
the
felt
traps.
about
I mean,
X, and I
Sky-
don't feel like that's a spoiler.
Very
Skyfall
easy
did
to-
Home
very-
Alone.
Very easy to see one growing into the other.
Mm-hmm.
Not just Skyfall, but the latest Rambo Last Blood pulled a Home Alone in the final act too. They're all just setting traps in houses.
Well, I mean, credit where credit is due. Rambo's been doing that the whole time, going back to, what Roger Ebert referred to as the fallacy of the predictable tree, which was named, I think, for one of the scenes in First Blood where somebody pauses under a tree and Rambo drops out of the tree onto him. How did you know that was going to be the tree in the first place?
I have one last one for everybody. It's my volatile one that I was saving.
Ooh.
I've got some of those.
I've got one as well.
Do
Well,
go
not
ahead.
volatile. I think, and I'll take that
Mine's
first.
gotten me in trouble a couple of times. It's Schindler's List. I think that
Really?
Schindler's List is an incredibly overrated film because I find it to be ultimately overly manipulative and not brave enough to actually do what they were pretending that they were doing.
Mhm.
That
I've never seen it.
oh,
I mean,
I actually think pretty highly of Schindler's List, but I could see the grounds for the disagreement there.
yeah.
So I came to that one in a sort of weird context that puts me more on Nate's side than Andy's. I got a poster for Christmas one year that was a whole bunch of like great cinema films, and there were the little names under each one, and you scratched off each one you'd seen. So I made it a project to go
So like
through and
a
hit
so
all
like a
of them.
cinematic advent calendar.
Yes, basically.
Nice.
Nice.
Except I'd already seen about 65% of them.
More candy
But-
for you directly.
Yeah, and I two of the ones that were on there were Schindler's List and The Pianist. And I didn't know what The Pianist was about. And I watched that one first, and then immediately after that happened to come to Schindler's List. So I had a real great Holocaust weekend working through those. And of the two, I think The Pianist is by far superior as far as sort of... There's an artificiality with Schindler's List. There's a movification of it, whereas The Pianist feels much more real.
It was
And
raw.
they're-
It was.
they're all awful situations to be sitting through and watching, even in a movie context. And I think I don't really want to watch either of them again because it's such a depressing watch. But I have to say, I think The Pianist did everything that Schindler's List was trying to do, only much better, because it didn't have a hero in it. It didn't have a great savior in it who did manage to rescue people from this situation. It was just a lone survivor who managed to live through it, and that hit much harder as a result. So
I can agree with that. That was a great film. I need to see that again. I don't recall it very well, but it's been years since I've seen it. But I'd like to again.
Wagner, you should have capped that weekend off with Life is Beautiful.
Let's
that
just
one I
not
actually,
go there.
that one I actually knew was about the Holocaust, so haven't really thought it out lately. And
Oh,
it
it's a
wasn't
holo-
on my
It's
calendar.
a Holocaust comedy.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
exactly what it sounds like.
Well, why don't before we go to our break, why don't we play some games if we've got any
Okay.
available?
I've got one. I've got the one where I'm going to name a bunch of movies, and then one actor from each of these movies was in one of the movies that we've done on the podcast.
Okay.
I'm terrible at this.
Oh.
All right. So the first movie is The Shawshank Redemption. Second movie is Children of Men. Third movie is Titanic. The fourth movie is The Player.
Ooh.
I would go with Bull Durham, but of course Tim Robbins is in two of the movies that you just mentioned, so I don't know as that's it.
Yeah, I was gonna say the
Not
same
Bull
thing.
Durham.
Okay, so
That was
hold
my first thought too, but
So once again, The Player, Titanic, Children of Men,
Yes.
and
The Shawshank Redemption.
Shawshank Redemption.
I'd say Children of Men is the one to tackle here. Because
Yeah,
that's not
that's a
as
much
star-studded.
narrower cast. Oh, criminy.
Who was?
Things with Chiwetel Ejiofor. Things with Julianne Moore. Things with Michael Caine. Have we seen anything with Clive Owen?
I don't think we have.
I don't
Yeah.
think so.
Purpose.
No.
We should.
No.
He's great.
yeah,
Yeah.
I love
Oh yeah,
him.
he's good. God damn it! Thought I got it for a second there.
All right. How about it?
I mean, the player is the play. I mean, everybody's in the player. Oh, wait a second. No, there's only
The
three
one who
people.
was in The Player
It's.
was tough because he's been
I
in
was
a
gonna
lot
say-
of things, but
I was gonna say it's not Warlock, is it?
no, it's not Warlock.
Okay.
Oh,
How about a
uh,
hint?
All right, do you want me to give you one of the actors?
sure.
Yeah.
The one from The Shawshank Redemption was Clancy Brown.
Oh.
Clancy. Oh, seen with Clancy.
Oh, God. Oh, criminy.
Wait.
Shawshank Redemption.
Clancy
Um,
Brown.
Wait, was it in a voice acting
No,
context?
Nope.
No. Okay, never mind.
his face was definitely in the movie.
And it's like on the tip of my brain, but it keeps falling right off.
No.
Give
Oh,
us
well,
another one.
The Titanic was David Warner,
But it wasn't Warlock.
not Warlock.
David
Was Clancy
Warner.
Brown in Warlock?
I was about to say it's.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
And it's not Time Bandits because Clancy Brown isn't in that.
Ooh, this is a hard one.
This is a hard one. What?
I mean, I can give you the Children of Men one.
Yeah.
That one's Julianne Moore. So you got.
See, I
you
was
got
gonna
that
say,
one.
isn't it the one? I can't remember the title of it, but it was that hard-boiled thing with magic, and I can't.
Oh,
Oh.
Cast a Deadly Spell.
Yes, there was
Cast
Cast
a
a
Deadly
Deadly
Spell.
Spell.
Nice.
I didn't know what else to put with Fred Ward other than like Remo Williams, but that would.
Henry and June, which is only the best
Henry and
movie
June too. Yeah.
ever.
But I thought those would be too easy, so I went with the player, which of course has
Yeah,
everybody.
Yeah, I was
Okay.
about to say,
Okay.
the player plays as an epic misdirect there. Because I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
thinking
but I
Richard-
didn't see the
I was thinking
player.
Richard E. Grant.
That win goes to Jane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I finally got something right.
All right. Well, why don't we go ahead and take our break? We will be right back. And we're back. Next up, we'll be talking about Gypsy, the 1962 musical based on the life of burlesque dancer Gypsy Rose Lee. I've seen this film many times. It's one of my personal top 10 favorites, and we'll talk about how I love this film, I'm sure. But I'd much rather hear about what everybody else thought, because most of you hadn't seen this. Is that correct?
That
I
is
have not
correct.
seen
I
it.
hadn't even heard of it.
I completely blind.
Awesome. I think some of you might have had some issues with it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's overrated.
No, well,
No, I'm kidding.
I'll tell you. I'll start with real quick. It was gorgeous. The colors, the dancing, the costumes, the sets, fantastic, and the music so good, so good.
Sondheim.
Yeah. You can't go wrong. But yeah, I think in the end, I remember just going, God, that mother is awful.
Yeah.
She's the
Yeah.
worst.
Yeah,
And she was kind of the star at the same time. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
she was definitely a central person. I mean,
They managed to make her charming because Rosalind Russell is inherently charming. I mean, don't believe me, go all the way back to His Girl Friday. That being said, I think my immediate reaction to this was, that was the nicest movie that I've ever seen about malignant narcissism, child abuse, and violations of child labor law.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
you
it's
got it.
my summary. My summary of it was it's a film about the death of vaudeville and the birth of child labor laws. So we're on very similar tracks there.
No, those are actually reasons I love the film and the story, and I find it very interesting that it's such a dark yet cheerful film. There's so many dark songs in it and dark moments of this awful parent.
Yeah, I had never realized the provenance of Everything's Coming Up Roses. You'll be swell, you'll be great. I had never realized how freaking dark that song was in context.
Yeah, you see Natalie Wood and Herbie in the background, just like looking on in terror.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's an amazing moment to me. I love that so much.
I think for me, the most critical moment in the entire film, and the only one that strikes me as unbelievable, which is a bit of a knock on the film, was the point when the mother actually volunteers her daughter up for the burlesque show.
That was
Because
my favorite scene.
that is, I think, most characteristic, and it struck me as, the malignant narcissism taken to a level of non-self-awareness that I didn't even find believable, because she had spent the previous 20 minutes of the film explaining to us how awful burlesque was, and how if you're in burlesque, if you're even playing in the same theater as burlesque, that means you're not a real vaudevillian anymore. And this, that, or the other. She plays it all down, and then there's one whiff that she'll get her daughter a little more time on stage, possibly in some aspect of a starring role, and she offers her up like a sacrificial lamb. And that moment was such a betrayal, and intentionally so.
Yeah, I was about to say,
that's how the film
yeah.
wants us to take
We've
it.
been building up to that point
felt
the whole
in
movie.
character.
It felt real to me.
It felt
Yeah.
further to me than a parent would go. I realize
Oh,
that's
that's sweet.
remarkable. Yeah. I realize that's remarkably naive of me. And I have a certain amount of experience with codependence recently. But it in the context of the film, it was so monstrous. I would not have put it past her. To me, I went into the film completely blind, and I was expecting a bit of a different aspect to it, because literally the only thing I knew about the film going into it was in pulling up the film on Prime and paying for it. The word stripper caught my eye. I'm like, oh, it's going to be one of those films. And then we start out where we start out, and I'm like, what? Is this the right movie?
Yeah,
I thought it was going to be the
like,
mother.
what, maybe like the last 20 minutes she was a
Yeah.
stripper.
I expected a lot more of,
Mhm.
well, frankly, of Gypsy Rose Lee in this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And I will absolutely agree with you, Nate, that Natalie Wood was absolutely adorable,
Yeah.
which was absolutely necessary because there was no way in hell anybody who wasn't absolutely adorable could have pulled this off. You know, that's
But
why they
what-
ended up going with such a completely charming cast on it, because there was no way to make it work if everybody in it wasn't already inherently endearing.
But what I took it for, and what I thought it was working towards, was this lengthy metaphor of a great star who leaves her mother behind. Yes, a horrible, abusive woman, but it was a grand metaphor of a child growing up and leaving the nest in some respect, of her becoming, the mother throughout the film is trying to suppress her children's age and keep them children under her wing in her nest. And when they ended up in the burlesque theater, I'm like, oh, so
Time
the
to
young
get on
girl
the pole.
the young girl is going to blossom. She's going to leave mom behind, and she's going to go off and become a star in her own respect, and it's going to be about the loss the mother feels in that respect. No, mom kicked her over to the pole.
Yeah.
And that caught me so far out that I lost some of the suspension of disbelief there.
I mean, the mother,
based on the character we'd been given.
I mean,
I'll shut up for a while now.
But the mother, like at one point, she loses everything. She loses all her entire squad, basically, we'll claim them squad. And instead of learning something, she just fucking doubles down.
Yeah.
And
she doubles down a lot in this movie.
Yeah, with the daughter who clearly has no talent for what she's trying to get her to do. I mean, as soon as very young Louise said, "Mama, do we have to stay in showbiz?" Like 10 minutes into the movie, I'm like, "Oh, this woman sucks." And then it was sort of this horrifying realization as the movie went on that the movie was about her and not Louise.
Yeah, I was a bit familiar with some of the background on this, knew a little bit about Gypsy Rose Lee in general. I've actually seen Lady of Burlesque, which was the 1943 adaptation with Barbara Stanwyck of her novel The G-String Murders. I never actually read the novel, but by all accounts it was actually pretty good, even if the movie was just, as a necessity of the times, a bit on the sanitized side. I still remember it as a pretty solid little programmer. So she was definitely a fairly talented person just in general. It's one of those things that took a lot of time and a lot of exigent circumstances to sort of wring out of her. So if your best life is on the pole, then very well, then your best life is on the pole. But that still feels like something that someone should do because they want to, not because their mom wanted them to do something to stay on the stage.
Yeah, that was not her personal choice at all. You could tell she was really struggling with the whole idea.
I thought the best part of Natalie Wood's performance was completely wordless when her mom is preparing her for that whole situation in the burlesque club. And just looking at her face, her body language in her face was just absolutely stunning. Like, you really
there's this definite feeling of fucking really.
Yeah, and Herbie calling her on it.
Finally.
That was fantastic when he was like, "You're gonna go and like make her stand naked in front of all those savages," and
allowing that this was a very
what about it?
Allowing, of course, that this also had a very slightly sanitized 1962 idea of what burlesque and stripping constituted. But I mean, I find it interesting. This movie is 60 years old, which means that the events that it was depicting were generally between 30 and 40 years before that. And the movie at the same time is only 14 years older than I am, so how does that make me feel? It's weird to look at this as stuff that happened a century ago now, but that's where we're at. Even so, it's weirdly innocent for being as
Tawdry.
objectively horrible as as a lot of what it is in it, which is a delicate juggling act. On balance, I have to agree, it is a really good movie. I can see why you like it so much, Nate. I don't know as that I quite share the same sentiment coming to it as late as I do. Yeah. But we've all been yammering. You go on.
No. I caught this when I was 6 years old. It was
Yeah,
so I had a very positive reaction to it.
That's some formative stuff right there.
Exactly. I think Natalie Wood is still my ultimate Hollywood crush. God rest her soul.
Yeah.
Because you just thought those ladies were dressing up pretty and taking off one or two little bits of clothes, maybe.
Yeah, there's no no pasties in this movie.
No, if you've met Nate's mom, you would know that Nate knew exactly what was going on. No, Nate's mom is a lovely lady. I mean that in a great way.
No, she was very honest about circumstances. But no, I mentioned it before, but I wanted to bring up my favorite line again from my favorite part of the movie, which is there's something wrong with stripping.
Yeah.
I love it so much.
I do actually we actually did really love the "We Love You, Mr. Goldstone" number.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes. And the baby sheep, the lamb.
Have some Goldstone, Mr. Egg Roll.
That was so
what was with the
delightful.
obsession with Chinese food in this movie? It's like all over the place.
Chinese food was cheap at the time. It was fairly new. It was exotic, but it was very cheap.
Oh.
And so a lot of vaudeville ended up eating a lot of Chinese food.
And I was
That's
a little
interesting.
concerned when they were talking about, the dog's name was Chow Mein, wasn't it? And then she's like, "Let's have Chow Mein for your birthday," and I was like, "No!" She was like cooking in the kitchen, and she's like, "We're having Chow Mein for your birthday." I was like, "Please no!" We couldn't have gotten that desperate.
Well, whatever happened to that lamb?
I know.
Mint jelly, that's what happened.
Yeah. I had concerns as well.
Yeah.
It was so cute, though.
Yeah, that lamb song, that was such an
The way
innocent
it looked
song.
at her when she was singing was,
Like
No,
knowing,
yeah.
knowing what was coming.
I gotta say, now that I think about it, because I hadn't thought about it before, Mama Rose does absolutely seem like the sort of person who would have left the entire menagerie at the side of the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she would have. But giving your daughter a lamb when you are in show business, traveling all the time, and living in hotels
Herbie
dictates
gave her
a
that.
certain. Oh, well, it still dictates a certain lack of foresight.
Yeah.
Well, he wanted
Well, I
them
feel
to-
like Herbie did that to kind of like,
Oh, try and
Go-
get her to settle down.
yeah,
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
hey,
That's true.
let's have a farm with a lamb and a real cow.
Shane, you said that song is so innocent, but I think you were going with it's so innocent but dark, right? It's kind of a dark ending to it. I wonder how old I am. Over and
Yeah,
over.
And then just like knowing, because I also like Wagner went in pretty much blind, but saw that it was about a stripper, and slowly realized it wasn't going to be the mother, because the movie was so much about the mother at first. I thought she was going to become a middle-aged stripper, and then when I realized it was about Natalie Wood, then the stuff with her started taking on a little bit of a darker hue.
Yeah, this isn't the Claremont Lounge.
And also, like, given her upbringing and how innocent she seemed the whole movie, I thought there would be more about her rise. But it kind of
felt
was just
like there
glossed
should have
over.
been more of a segue there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
instead, we just got the bump and grind montage. And it's, I mean, love Natalie Wood. I don't find her a particularly impressive bump and grinder in this. I mean,
fine.
obviously she was incredibly awkward in that first bout out, and did have a smile that could light up New York on Christmas. But she never really felt that much less uncomfortable in the subsequent parts of the montage. She felt a bit more technically proficient, but I get the feeling that Natalie Wood was not especially comfortable with that aspect of the role. Again, that's just an impression that I got from watching it. She never really felt sort of fully lived in as a burlesque dancer.
There's I know one of the bits they did. There's actual footage of Gypsy Rose Lee doing the dance, which is the one with the little circle thing. that she holds over her body.
Oh yeah.
Very famous dance, replicated many, many, many times.
Yeah, even by Bugs Bunny, I think.
Yeah. And it's amazing to see live. It's very, very fun. It is a good time.
Well, just reading up a bit more on the background, by all accounts, Gypsy Rose Lee was particularly known for her wit on stage. She was a deeply companionable performer, is my impression, and that's unfortunately not something that really comes across. Granted, they ellipsize the hell out of that aspect of the story in the very last act of the movie. We never really get to feel a sense of her as, like I say, as a lived-in performer, just as someone who kind of bumbled from point A to point B to point C.
Well, she dropped a bra strap, got famous, and then eventually showed everything in a bikini, a spangled bikini.
I think we really felt that lived-in aspect, though, when the mom was banned from the backstage area and the scene that followed that, when she was in her lavish dressing room and all of those aspects of it. I thought we didn't see her performance as a lived-in character, but we did see her as a person who had reached that stage.
Well, I mean, that felt like the trappings of the professional aspect of it, but again, she never felt comfortable in that capacity. So at that point, you're going straight from like the the opening night jitters to the pre-burnout with barely an emotional arc between the two of them.
Yeah, we never got the sense, she lived her whole life not really being comfortable on stage, being told she wasn't talented. We never got the moment where she's like, "Oh, this is what I'm good at."
She
we
never
had that.
She never has her own moment where lightning strikes. But
Granted,
she does say, "I'm beautiful," and that.
Yeah.
But
it's not
really
about
good enough
Gypsy,
for me.
despite the title. It's about Mama.
No, I got to agree with Jane there. We did get that moment, and it was almost as fast as a lightning flash, which was when she sees herself in the mirror for the first time in the get-up, and she says, "I'm a pretty girl."
The whole ugly
I
duckling
think
thing.
that was supposed to be that moment. You're right. The movie isn't about her; it's about her mother. But we see glances of her arc and her story. So I don't think it's fair to say it's unearned, or we don't see her as the full performer.
It's just so small, though.
It's just so small. Yeah, because we get to the last 20 minutes of the film before we get to the burlesque stage. Actually, that might be an exaggeration.
Like
At what point
minutes.
do we get to the burlesque
it's about
theater?
It's about 20 minutes before the end of the
20, 25 minutes to the end. Yep.
It's close. It's probably about 40, I would say.
Okay.
Really?
Because you got to get a gimmick.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
but I felt like that was before. I mean, until before she actually got in the costume and was going
Oh, you mean
I would
her
guess
out
burlesque
on
that.
stage.
I thought you meant just burlesque in general.
Oh no, hers
I
was
meant
like the last
burlesque in
20
general.
minutes.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I love the gotta get a gimmick
yeah,
though. That
I
was
do-
really
I do
sweet.
like the
and those
other-
ladies
again-
were great.
Yeah, again, for further
They were
slightly burned
pros.
out performers.
Lightly.
Yeah. Oh, just a bit.
Yeah.
And Miss Mazeppa was from the original stage production, so she was a
She was a
carryover.
trip.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
She's my favorite. I'm a
she
Miss
had some-
Mazeppa man.
She had some fearsome lungs on her.
Yeah.
And I'm not even
is that
speaking
what you're calling
metaphorically.
them?
Yeah, I was about to say. Yeah. It occurred to me what I just said right after I said it. Oh, those two. But yeah, that's a woman who, whatever she says to you, you sit the fuck down.
Yeah. Well, I love this movie. I'm so glad that all of you have gotten a chance to see it.
What's a fascinating experience. That's possibly the lead
It
that we're
was.
hearing. It is
And
a sort of
beautiful.
thing that would go radically differently if they attempted to adapt it these days, which makes me a little bit curious about, I guess, I was thinking it was something like a 2003 TV remake with Bette Midler as Mama Rose.
Yeah.
Actually got me a little bit curious at this point, but I have a feeling that if they stuck to the original book on the thing, they probably didn't do a whole lot of updating to make it more honest about the pitfalls of the situation.
Yeah, I mean, nowadays I don't think they would make the mom the focus because nowadays we
Yeah.
have, the whole thing with Britney Spears and her father, the
Yeah.
Culkins,
Yeah.
Lindsay Lohan, all those kinds of stage parents that we know about, all these kinds of abusive
Yeah.
situations. I don't think she
Well,
wouldn't. They wouldn't be able to make her sympathetic,
Yeah, exactly. That's kind
Well-
of my point. Is I don't think that you could do just a straight adaptation of the play itself at this point and have it still work.
I mean,
think we-
I want to
think we
know
may
more
have dropped
about.
Jane there.
Yeah, I want to know more about.
I don't know what
Gypsy
happened
Rose.
there.
I don't
Yeah,
need to know more about the
absolutely.
mother.
Exactly.
I think. I mean, we
Yeah.
got.
I
An
mean,
hour,
somebody should do an actual biopic of Gypsy Rose Lee at some
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, we
By-
got
by
almost
all
a-
account, by all accounts, she's a fascinating character.
We got almost an hour and a half of just mother until we really,
Mhm.
until Natalie Wood's character really started to even have more than a couple of
Step to
lines
the
per
front.
scene. Yeah.
Poor Carl Malden trying to trying to fight for every little inch of celluloid he can hold close to himself. Wonderfully endearing performance as a guy just getting steamrolled the fuck out.
No, I didn't really see it that way. I saw it as he was just so taken with Rose and the kids that he would do anything for them. And he felt like maybe if I'm supportive, maybe if I offer them alternatives, he was just trying to get
I
Rose
see no
to
reason to
settle
modify
down
my
with
prior
him.
statement. It feels like the same thing phrased differently. No, his motivations are solid and honest and pure, and he is getting Mack trucked from moment to moment, just by the.
I don't feel like
Yeah.
it was Mac trucked. I feel like he just really liked them and
Yeah.
went along with it. It's just
Hmm.
as much as he wasn't being like forced into anything. He was just like, whatever you want, beautiful. I don't know.
He could
Whatever
he could bend.
whatever I have to do to stay in y'all's
He could
life.
bend very, very, very,
Well,
very
He
far.
did.
Well,
Yeah.
at a more meta level, I'm also talking about the performance,
Yeah.
because
Well,
Rosalind Russell does absolutely fricking dominate this picture and absolutely
Mhm.
dominates every moment that she's on screen.
as
Yeah.
she should.
As she
I
should.
mean, that's what
Uh,
it's,
she-
it's her movie.
Yeah, no,
honestly,
I
it was
find-
her story.
I do think it's sort of fascinating that Russell had such a long career and such range, which she always attributed to having somehow avoided getting pigeonholed as a sex symbol when she first started to turn up a lot back in the late 30s. So she ended up having a much sort of broader dramatic range, I think, than anybody gave her credit for, at least initially, and also again ended up with a longer career and getting to do a lot more stuff than a lot of the other sort of more iconic actresses of the era. So that's a good thing. I think Rosalind Russell is deeply underappreciated just in general.
And she dominates the scene so much that I didn't notice whether or not this was true, but it felt like all of her scenes were like one take. I'm sure they were not, but just the energy and flow to them really felt like it was just the camera was just following her around and she was commanding it. But I'm probably wrong, but I'm probably wrong about the actual editing
not
of it.
at all. I
Well,
like that. Yeah, that's something I noticed with the camera work with this film. One thing that I really like about it is it's not bombastic as far as musicals go. It's a lot of they use a lot of the music as emotion rather than a big number.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
And at the same time,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, from a standpoint of visual style, Mervyn LeRoy is another old refugee from the golden age of the studio system. In this case, is just working that sort of old pro magic of trusting the damn material.
Mhm.
So if there's a slight staginess to it, that is more an aspect of its origins as a stage musical rather than any shortcoming of the filmmaking. It's just at this point you want to sit on the broad shot, taking advantage of the full Technorama frame, and just trust the material to frickin' work. And by and large, it absolutely does.
Yeah, I mean, when it's done badly, we speak of them just filming the musical as though they just snuck a movie. They just snuck a camera into the movie theater and just pointed it at the stage. But when it's done well, you get this. You
Yeah.
get the long takes. You get, we're not gonna leave these characters. They're all in the moment for 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes between cuts,
Mm-hmm.
and it has the feel of seeing it in a theater without the artifice of it. So.
I mean, at the same time, the editing never feels lazy or languid.
Mhm.
It is, for all of its 143-minute running time, a remarkably punchy picture.
I never feel
it never
that
gets
running time.
boring. It never
Yeah.
gets boring.
So I did have one particular question about the story itself, and I'm really curious what y'all's reaction to it. What is your take, not an interpretation, but what was your sort of emotional reaction to the last 2 or 3 minutes of the film after she gets her big number up on the stage, where she talks about how she would have been, she would have been great if she had, started young herself. And then her daughter comes out and essentially forgives her for the 25 years of child abuse that led up to this stage. What is your feeling
Stockholm
about
syndrome.
Yeah, I was
Stockholm
so far gone on
syndrome.
the mother by that point. And when she did her big number, she's like, "Fine, it's all about me." I was like, "No shit." And then the daughter comes out, and I'm like, "All right, whatever." The mother still sucks. Like I didn't feel like the forgiveness was warranted. But I mean, she's her mother, so
Well, I mean, the forgiveness isn't warranted, obviously, but I actually felt it was sincere. I could actually feel the moment there where
Yeah.
the daughter is forgiving her mother for the essential flaw in her personality, and it was a grand act of charity on the daughter's part. It was nothing that the mother earned. There was no good reason that she should have forgiven her mother all of that, but it felt like an honest to God pillar of the daughter's personality that she could even make the gesture.
Well, that's so nice, but I'm sorry, babe. I honestly thought that she was so used to her mother being this way that it just felt like a comfortable pattern to fall back into.
That's why I wanted to
Yeah.
ask, because I was curious if other people felt that aspect, if they felt like, oh no, you're not taking her back again, are you?
I kind of was feeling that.
Yeah,
if they
me
felt it the
too.
way I felt it, I felt it was like a conclusion to their relationship, in that mom wasn't going to control her anymore, but she's still her mother, so she still gets to be a part of her life. But I was curious if other people had a different feeling, because I could very easily see how it could go either way.
No, as somebody who's cut a family member out of his life for being an extreme, like, clinical narcissist,
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot harder than I thought it would be to break those ties. I
Mhm.
mean, you grew up with them. They've been around you your whole life, and like told you what to do forever and ever. How do you break out of that? It's near impossible. It's so difficult.
And it's so much easier to just sort of, well, this doesn't sound right. This is not a good word for it, but to roll over.
Mhm.
It's easier not to create drama, to
Yeah.
just live and let live. And that's not necessarily what's best for you.
Well,
Or
Sometimes
them.
you have,
Yeah.
or them. Yeah, you're right.
And-
Sometimes you just have to say enough.
And that's
Enough.
why I
I'm
found
not going to play this game anymore. And she didn't.
yeah.
She
That's why I was so interested in these last few minutes, because it felt like the entire film was leading to that point. And she could have just as easily told her mother to, never want to see you again, or take her back into the fold. And what each of those directions means is not entirely clear to me after the film is over. And it'd be interesting to know, like, what family history wise, what happened from that point on. Because it struck me as a fairly emotionally and sort of psychologically complex moment of the film, in that it was all the history leading up to this point. So that's why I was curious what everyone thought about it.
Yeah.
Well, also in this case, the daughter, where she is now, she's happy with where she is, and that's where her mother pushed her to. It's not like her daughter's destitute and has a finger to point at her mother. She could easily think, "Oh, well, I owe this to you. You made me what I am."
Yeah, I mean,
That is-
noting as much as anything else, despite the occasional narration on the part of Mama Rose, it was Gypsy Rose Lee's memoirs that this
Memoir.
was based on.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I kind of go back to your earlier suggestion of this as Gypsy Rose Lee kind of deliberately putting herself in the position of this monumental act of emotional charity as much as anything else, just to sort of clean up the narrative of the story.
Mm-hmm. It's also, it would have been sort of psychologically cleaner as a story if it had been what I initially thought the story was going to be, which was that Gypsy Rose Lee found her way into burlesque because of the situation she was in, rather than being pushed into it by her mother, in which case she could have been an entirely self-made woman, at which point she has the position in order to grant charity to her mother and invite her back into her life. But that's not where the story went, which is why I was so interested in what they were doing after that point. That it was this situation that her mother pushed her into after telling her for years it was a terrible situation to be in, and then she's enormously successful in it, and she gets to dictate terms to her mother. So it's just a very weird and interesting relationship at that point.
Well, do you
I
think?
don't know. I mean, she gave her a mink, and I mean, you know what I'm saying? She gave her the coat off her back, and it was like, "I'll be cold until we get to the car where I have a stall." I mean, sacrifice for
Yeah.
her.
Well, do you
For
think?
her mother.
Do you think the mother's
her
big
mother.
number was like her big cathartic moment, and she got it out of her system, and now she no longer had to be that monster
No.
stage mother?
No.
But
No,
I
wouldn't
think
that
that-
be
I think that's
nice?
the
But
case.
But
no.
I think the daughter might have been in a position now where she just didn't have to listen to mom anymore, and she could be charitable to her, but she didn't have to listen to her anymore. But it may be an entirely naive from, like I said, it would be very interesting to know in reality what happened to their relationship from that point forward.
Read
It
the
just made
memoir.
me
You mean in
deeply uncomfortable in the end.
What?
I just felt so bad for her.
I'm just curious if Gypsy Rose Lee,
Yeah.
the actual person,
Okay, you want
kept
Yeah.
in touch with her mother until the mother presumably died.
apparently.
Okay.
Wow.
But she apparently Mama Rose got banned from more and more places. And,
Surprise.
Yeah, and eventually had to just settle down
Hmm.
because there was
On a
nothing
farm?
left. Yeah. I'm not quite sure if she settled down with anybody or if she was all alone or what she did, but no,
See,
that's
that's just an essential part of the story that's missing here.
Uh.
And it's weird that it ends there.
Well, they already had you for 2 hours and 23 minutes. How much more do you want?
I want an American Graffiti text across the screen.
and she kept getting banned.
few years early for that, but yeah, no, I don't
Yeah.
think you're I don't think you're wrong on that front. Now, this could benefit from more. What do I love? Context. Like I said, somebody should actually do a biopic about Gypsy Rose
Mhm.
Lee. That's actually about Gypsy Rose Lee.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Leave the whole musical aspect aside. I get the feeling that it would probably be just inherently a lot darker. But that could be pretty interesting in its own right.
Well, yeah, I mean, Madame Rose is world renowned as the greatest stage mother of all time.
And greatest is definitely in quotes, or at least doing a lot of heavy lifting in
Right.
that phrase.
Right.
How about most notorious?
Most
There you go.
notorious
That
is
works.
not bad.
That
The
works.
notorious Madame Rose.
Yep. Well, I think we're probably gonna call it there. I'm so glad you guys got to see this, and yeah, I don't know what else to say. I'm just really happy that you all got to see it and that you liked it. Or
You liked it a lot.
yeah.
Still don't know how to feel about the fact that we liked it a lot, but
All right, well that's gonna do it. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at What's on the Pile. You can find us on YouTube under the Punch Bunny YouTube channel, or you can visit our website whatsonthepile.com. Thanks for hanging out.